Welcome back. Coronavirus stimulus. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell speaking out about a second stimulus check that could be part of the next coronavirus relief package. He says Americans making less than $40,000 a year have been hardest hit by this pandemic. The White House also expressing interest in another round of stimulus. Joining me right now is former acting White House Chief of Staff and former OMB Director Mick Mulvaney. Mick, it is great to have you this morning. Thanks so much for joining us.
Maria, thanks for having me.
So tell me about some of the important things that goes into deciding what should be in the next stimulus package. We're talking about a population of people making under $40,000 in one area. Others, you're talking about getting money directly to employees so that it can go out the door and make sure that employees have money keep continuing to come in. What is the priority in your view in terms of coming up with the next stimulus package?
Yeah, the priority is pretty much the calendar, which you're facing, obviously, is an election season into a recession, which is why we've gone fairly quickly from a consensus, sort of at least within Republicans, of let's wait and see to let's pass something, which is why you and I have talked about this before. We fully expect something to pass before the end of July. The only question is what. Passing something during July gives politicians a chance to go home during the fall and campaign with something to talk about. So something will pass. And the question is, what should it be? And my fear is that they're looking at it through the lens of trying to pick up political popularity as opposed to looking at how to actually fix the problem. We've not talked yet about this idea of giving people money to go on vacation, which sounds great, I guess, to some folks. But if folks aren't going on vacation because they're afraid of getting sick, giving them money to go on vacation isn't going to solve the problem. So I'm hopeful that what's going on Capitol Hill right now is trying to figure out a way to fashion a stimulus that actually helps us solve the reason we're in this recession in the first place, which is solving COVID.
How successful was the PPP loan program? The Trump administration releasing the recipients of small business PPP loans. The list includes some large companies with ties to politicians, some real insiders, including a California winery co-owned by Governor Gavin Newsom, a firm linked to Nancy Pelosi's husband, Kanye West's sneaker line, Robert De Niro's Nobu restaurants took money, 12 of them. How did these businesses get any money, these insiders, like, related to Nancy Pelosi and Gavin Newsom?
Well, you're talking about what? At least $2 trillion that was supposed to go out in the CARES Act. Anytime you're talking about that sum of money, you're going to have those types of circumstances. And I wish that Republicans at least had learned the example from the Democrats in 2009 and 2010 when they passed the American Recovery Act. That you can't really buy elections, that people tend to react negatively to stimulus as opposed to positively because people see the abuse probably more than they see the impact on themselves. And that's not to say that PPP didn't help people, and it certainly did. There's a lot of small businesses who benefited. But to think there wasn't going to be those types of stories in advance was simply naive. I think it's a good time now to step back and say, okay, look, we passed the CARES Act. Less than half of the money from the CARES Act is actually in the system yet. A lot of the money that is in the system is sitting in cash accounts in banks. And the economy already seems to have turned around. So if the CARES Act is working, it's working now, and it's starting to help get the economy back on track. I think that's a good time to sort of take that deep breath and say, you know what, we know it's politically expedient to pass a stimulus now, but maybe it's not the best thing economically, and maybe we should wait and take a longer look.
Well, you mentioned the election, and obviously that's sort of on the horizon here. We are, 120 days away or something like that to the election of 2020. Let me ask you, Mick, about the president and what he needs to do, in your view. I mean, here we have a country that is, seeing its cities destroyed. You've got infrastructure destruction. You've got shootings rising, crime rising in many, many large cities. And, of course, an economy that is stuck in recession. We are expecting growth in the third quarter, but we haven't seen evidence of that yet. What does President Trump need to do to, in fact, get a message across and lead in this uncertain time? You see him tweeting about Bubba Wallace. A lot of people, even his supporters, are saying, Mr. President, stick to the message. Try to ensure that your message on fixing the economy and bringing back law and order is resonating.
Yeah, and you have already seen some indications of growth. Maybe that's what he should be talking about. I think it's just over 7 million jobs in the last 2 months. Retail sales are up. Home sales in May, I think, set a record. So there's good news there. How do you take that and turn that into a message that gets you reelected? And one of the things you do is to point out to people that you made America great, to use his term, in the first place. You could do it again. If Joe Biden has a history of anything, it's not being able to get the country out of a slow economy. They had 8 years under President Obama and Vice President Biden to do that, and it didn't work. So if the president can go back to drawing those contrasts between him and Joe Biden, that becomes a race between Trump and Biden, I think the president does extraordinarily well. He shows people, look, if you hire me, this is what you get. If you hire him, you end up with no jobs. If it ends up being a popularity contest, or worse, a referendum on President Trump, I think he's got some real headwinds to face.
All right, Mick, we'll be watching. Thanks very much for your insights on all of the above. Mick Mulvaney joining us this morning right here. We'll take a break.